Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save some money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could be hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
I don't know what I'm doing, but this is going to be fun. Those were the last words anyone heard Mary Knowlton say. Moments later, the 73-year-old retired librarian was shot in one of the most unexpected places, the middle of a busy police station on a Tuesday evening. Though Knowlton was a transplant from Minnesota, she quickly became a beloved member of the Punta Gorda community in Florida. Knowlton was known for her friendly personality and willingness to help others. She had taken an interest in the town's Chamber of Commerce and was spending her time helping the town build a new public library at the time of her death. That's how Knowlton found herself staring down the barrel of a gun on Tuesday, August 9th, 2016. As a member of the Chamber of Commerce, Knowlton had been attending a Citizen Police Academy training at the Punta Gorda police station. The training was geared towards community members to help them understand the experience of being a police officer and their decision-making while on the job. During the 2-hour training, Police Chief Tom Lewis asked for volunteers to participate in a shoot or don't shoot scenario. Always a good sport, Knowlton raised her hand. She was the lone volunteer for Lewis's role-playing exercise. In the scenario, Knowlton played a civilian, and Officer Lee Cole was an intruder. Wearing his hoodie up and a face covering, Officer Cole took his role seriously, lifting his gun menacingly at Knowlton and firing 3 bullets at her chest in broad daylight outside the police station. Officer Cole thought he was firing blanks. He wasn't.
Photojournalist Sue Paquin took the pictures for the Charlotte Sun newspaper.
There was 3 or 4 shots, and she came around. And at first, she was starting to double over, and we all thought, oh, she's getting into it, and she's play acting, role-playing with it. And I don't think it was a split second later that when she fell, we all realized there was something terribly wrong.
Paquin was among the crowd of over 30 attendees at the event. She even photographed the exercise before everyone realized it had gone wrong. The Punta Gorda residents watched on in shock, including Knowlton's husband, Gary. Knowlton was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead that evening. Punta Gorda City Council took just 2 months to approve a more than $2 million settlement to the Knowlton family, but that didn't answer the question, who was responsible for her death?
You know, the police chief here in Punta Gorda has not answered the question as to why they were using a real gun in a scenario with citizens just to show them what it's like to be a police officer. And the other question is, how did live ammunition get in that weapon when they've been using blank rounds for the past 2 years?
Chief Lewis and Officer Cole were suspended from duty following Knowlton's death. Although he didn't fire the gun, Chief Lewis was charged with culpable negligence. Prosecutors alleged that he was responsible for making safety checks on the firearm, and so therefore he was ultimately responsible for her death. In today's episode, we'll explore this charge of culpable negligence and just how justice can be served in what the press called a freak accident. This episode was submitted as a listener suggestion, and although it's pretty different than other cases covered on Court Junkie, I thought it was an interesting case to cover. This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie, episode 255. Use the code. Tom Lewis's trial began on June 26, 2017, in Charlotte County, Florida. While the courtroom was crowded with spectators, all attendees were dressed in plain clothes. Due to the involvement of law enforcement in the trial, the judge presiding over the case ordered that all officers watching must attend out of uniform. The question on everyone's minds as the trial began: who was responsible? Did Chief Tom Lewis do anything criminally negligent, directly resulting in Knowlton's death? Assistant State Prosecutor Stephanie Russell began opening statements by walking the jury through the agenda of the Citizens Police Academy, specifically the purpose of the shoot or don't shoot exercise Knowlton participated in.
The purpose of these were to give citizens the idea of what it is that law enforcement faces every day. And it's not as clear-cut as to whether or not they should shoot or not shoot. It's a lot more complicated and stressful. This time, everything changed. They've done this numerous times, but this time, everything changed.
Prosecutor Russell alluded to the evidence the jury would see. Since the simulation occurred at the police station, the prosecution had video footage of Officer Cole shooting Knowlton. They also had photographs from photojournalist Sue Paquin.
You will see Mary Knowlton approach Lee Cole in between the two cars. He's pretending to be on a cell phone. She walks up with her simunition weapon, and it's a bright blue weapon, so that way you know that this is not a real firearm. As she's walking up, Lee Cole turns to walk away. She follows him, grabs something off the car, spins around, and starts firing. He fires in a very close distance to Mary Knowlton.
Prosecutor Russell then theorized how the gun could have been loaded with live rounds instead of blanks.
The evidence will show you it's not blanks, as they were supposed to be. These were what are known as wad cutters. Mary Knowlton passed away that night after being shot. A wad cutter is a bullet that's specifically designed mainly for competitive shooting because it gives a clear-cut hole into a target instead of other ammunition that'll kind of flay out. So that's what the purpose of wad cutters are, and they're not necessarily as common as other ammunition, and they can look similar to blanks.
Well, this is true, Prosecutor Russell said. She reminded the jury that they were witnessing the trial of one particular part of this case. Chief Lewis may not have shot the gun, but she said his decisions led to loading the gun with live rounds.
Many things went wrong on this night. Many people were involved. But today, we are here because of the role that Tom Lewis took in that tragedy. Not the chief of police, the individual, Tom Lewis. You're going to hear a lot of testimony from the stand from different witnesses, and the majority of them are going to be Punta Gorda Police Department officers. Now, what you'll see is that Tom Lewis is involved in almost every stage of the academy.
She told the jury that Chief Lewis was guilty of culpable negligence due to his level of oversight in the academy and his neglect regarding firearm safety. Chief Lewis ran the simulation that day, telling other officers where to go and when. He also briefed them on how the simulation would proceed. Prosecutor Russell noted how he rushed officers and the civilians participating through the academy. She alleged that he made decisions around the firearms based on theatricality and impact, not safety.
Now, Mary Knowlton, a civilian who had never held a firearm in her life, was placed in a scenario with a trained law enforcement officer with a real firearm. Tom Lewis also being a firearms instructor, recklessly switched to blank ammunition instead of using those detergent pellets so it would cause more of an impact.
She said the fact that Chief Lewis permitted Officer Cole to use a real firearm, even when they thought it was loaded with blanks, was troubling. Law enforcement veteran and firearms expert Gene Sims agreed. In his testimony, perhaps the most critical of Chief Lewis, Sims questioned the chief's decision-making in almost every aspect of the shoot/don't shoot scenario.
I had, after watching the video and the pictures, had safety concerns as to how it was performed.
Right. And what were those safety concerns?
There was the fact that there was a live firearm involved in the scenario, the placement of the spectators in that scenario, and the distance from the scenario to the observers.
And through your training and experience, under what circumstances would it be appropriate to allow or sanction the use of a real firearm, regardless of what's in it, in a shoot, don't shoot type of scenario?
Never.
Prosecutor Russell also alleged that Chief Lewis failed to keep any consistent safety measures in place.
Now, you will hear that there were policies in place about what kind of firearms could be used and what couldn't while you're on and off duty, but there were no policies or procedures in place for this type of event, for this type of situation. You'll also hear that no one was designated as a safety officer, whose responsibility it would have been to check all firearms to make sure that the ammunition being used were actually blanks.
According to Prosecutor Russell, this relaxed approach applied not only to the officers, but also to the civilians involved. In his testimony, John Pryor, a member of the Punta Gorda Chamber of Commerce and also an attendee of the training that night, couldn't recall Chief Lewis ever explaining the scenario or explaining that Officer Cole would actually be armed.
When he was explaining a little bit about the scenario, did he ever say anything about the Officer Cole, who was going to be playing the bad guy, so to speak?
No, I didn't know how the scenario was going to play out.
Did he tell the group that officer would have a gun?
I never heard that.
John Wright, president of Punta Gorda's Chamber of Commerce, also took the stand and described how quickly the scenario unfolded. Mere moments after the planned simulation began, the shots were fired.
Mary and I always bantered together, and she looked at me as she walked forward and just said something along the lines of, "This is another fine mess you get me into. I'm looking forward to this." And I said, "Go give him hell." And that's when she walked forward, and the scenario started with an officer dressed in a hood and the visor mask, challenging her. And the next thing we heard was 3 loud bangs.
According to Pryor, in the immediate aftermath, Chief Lewis took responsibility for what happened. In the minutes after the shooting, the civilians were brought into a conference room in the police station, he said. Not long after, Chief Lewis came in and spoke to the group.
He explained to us that it was a tragic accident and that, in not so many words, I don't remember his exact words, but it had been a tragic accident, that live ammunition may have been used, and that he thought it was his fault or his responsibility. I'm going to correct that. I don't think he said it was his fault. He just took responsibility for the event.
Prosecutor Russell told the jury that wasn't out of character, making this case a challenge to prosecute. The state wasn't arguing that Chief Lewis intended to load the gun with real bullets or that he wanted to put anyone in harm's way.
The state is not at any point saying that Tom Lewis is a bad guy. He never wanted any of this to happen. He never wanted Mary Knowlton to be hurt. He never wanted anything like this to ever occur at the Punta Gorda Police Department.
calling witnesses from the Punta Gorda Chamber of Commerce and firearms experts from the community, the prosecution argued that although Chief Lewis was a well-liked chief among the officers and he didn't intend to hurt Knowlton, he was negligent. He could have put more safety precautions around firearms, especially in scenarios involving civilians. Prosecutor Russell told the jury that Chief Lewis's choices, including using a live firearm with blanks and rushing volunteers through the shoot-don't-shoot scenario, were evidence of his guilt. The prosecution presented multiple witnesses over the first 3 days of the trial. The moment the prosecution rested, Chief Lewis's defense attorney, Stephen Romine, argued for an acquittal. After a half-hour recess, Judge Devin George returned with a statement regarding that request.
The court has defined culpable negligence as consciously doing an act which a reasonable person would know is likely to result in death or great bodily harm to another person, even though done without any intent to injure. The facts have made clear that this event did, in fact, result in the death of a person, which we can't ignore. So then what we look at is, did the evidence show that it was conscious with regard to what this defendant himself did? And the evidence shows, albeit disputed by defense, that there was no safety protocol. There were certain situations that occurred between multiple people of the Punta Gorda Police Department that caused this unfortunate event. So with what has been provided in the light most favorable to the state, it is not up to the court to decide whether these actions are gross and flagrant on behalf of the defendant here. It is enough for the jury to decide whether it's gross and flagrant on what he knew or did not know at the time of this event.
With their acquittal denied, the defense began arguing discounts not available in all states and situations. Defense attorney Stephen Romine represented former Chief Tom Lewis. Before the trial began, he had filed a motion asking the judge to dismiss the case up front, which was denied. Romine's defense was simple, but he didn't skirt around the tragic nature of the case.
Let's be very clear about this. This incident happened. This tragedy happened. And absolutely, it's a tragedy. There will never be any issue in this case that what happened to Mary Knowlton was awful and should never happen. And that's not an issue here.
He told the jury that pinning the responsibility on Chief Lewis was unfair. He said Chief Lewis could train his officers all he wanted, but he couldn't be held responsible for their actions. While the prosecution had argued that Chief Lewis's oversight led to Knowlton's death, Romine argued that many of the policies had been put in place before Chief Lewis had been instated as interim police chief. The Punta Gorda police station had been practicing shoot-don't-shoot scenarios with civilians as early as 2015, before Tom Lewis was ever the chief. In fact, he said these were so common, they were conducted across groups and locations.
The canine officers did with blanks, where they'd go to middle schools and show kids this is what happens with it, where they would go to high school stadium areas, things like that, where they would use the blank gun, which is a gun that could fire a live round, but they're all trained in how to use it to fire a blank.
He said using a real gun with blanks wasn't negligent. It was fairly standard procedure. He alleged that Chief Lewis had a right to expect his officers to do their duties.
There's a policy that's been in effect the whole time. And that policy is, don't bring in ammo, that's not ours, that we don't approve or issue. Don't point your gun at anybody.
He said the ammunition that was loaded into Officer Cole's gun that night violated the department's policy. Officer Cole had obtained the bullets not from the official channels of the department, but from Public Information Officer Katie Heck.
Katie Heck takes 3 boxes and tells Lee Cole, hey, I've got some boxes here. I know you shoot blanks. I think they're blanks. Why don't you go take them and Check them out. Shouldn't read the box.
He said several months before the event, Heck provided Officer Cole with the ammunition for the Citizens Police Academy. At the time, Heck believed they were blanks, but in reality, they were wad cutters, which are live ammunition that look very similar to blanks. Heck served 11 years with the department, and her role as public information officer was to plan community events, securing everything from the space to the correct ammunition and supplies. He said Chief Lewis could do everything possible to ensure the safety of his fellow officers and civilians. But still, it would be a challenge for him to monitor everything they did, especially when violating department policy around bullets. He asked, how could Chief Lewis have known about bullets that weren't from the department? The defense further hammered this point during their intense cross-examination of now former Punta Gorda Police Lieutenant Katie Heck.
There is no question in your mind then, as you sit here today, that the wad cutters that were found in his vehicle that he used to fire in this event came from you, correct?
No.
No what? Am I correct?
Oh, yes.
Romine told the jury that while Tom Lewis was the police chief in charge of the department, he had to delegate and believe that his officers would act out of their best faith interests.
And you're going to hear from the evidence that Tom Lewis, as the chief, has a right to expect they're going to do their duties. He has a right to expect they're going to follow the law, to follow department policy, to follow the training.
He said the day the Chamber of Commerce visited, Chief Lewis acted as the narrator of the whole event, staying with the civilians through different demonstrations and exercises. It would have been impossible, he alleged, for Chief Lewis to do that job while simultaneously double-checking the work of every other officer present. Delegating and expecting people to do their jobs is not negligence, he said. Chief Lewis couldn't prevent what he didn't know. Just before the Citizens Police Academy kicked off, Officer Cole, along with several other officers, tested his firearm.
A discussion comes up about, well, do these blanks make a loud enough noise for this public demonstration? I don't know. Let's test fire one. Loads them. Number of Charlotte County Sheriff's officers are around. Goes down, shoots. You're going to hear evidence that at least two of the people there look down and they see what appears to be the dirt move. Nobody alerts Chief Lewis to this. Nobody alerts the Punta Gorda Police Department to this.
As both the prosecution and the defense mentioned, wad cutters are specialized bullets that police officers wouldn't see regularly. At a glance, they resemble a blank. Romine called 3 Charlotte County Sheriff's deputies and a Punta Gorda police captain as witnesses. During testimony, the deputies recalled seeing Officer Cole's bullets and assuming they were blanks, as Charlotte County Sheriff's Office Canine Supervisor Corporal Leonard Pravat testified. Pravat had over 20 years of experience in the canine unit, training dogs for service, which included using blanks to acclimate them to the sounds of gunshots. Pravat was very familiar with blanks, and he failed to identify that the bullets Officer Cole had loaded his gun with just before the shoot-don't-shoot simulation were wad cutters.
So at some point then, before the incident began, did there come a time where you were looking closer at the blanks or checking them out?
Yes, sir. I had no assigned role in any of the demonstrations, so I was headed up front to the classroom. I looked over and I just saw the box. I didn't recognize it. So I walked over to it and I asked him, I said, new blanks. And he said, yeah, they're cheaper. And I picked up the box and looked in it. It was open and they were loose rounds laying on top of each other in the box, and they appeared to be blanks.
According to Romine, if Pravat and the other officers present couldn't identify the bullets, and no one let Chief Lewis know that they had exchanged non-department approved bullets, how could he have known something was about to go terribly wrong? Tom Lewis's trial lasted just 3 days. In her closing arguments, Prosecutor Russell told the jury that he was partly responsible for Mary Knowlton's death due to negligence.
Tom Lewis knew everything that was going on. You saw he was standing right there. He was involved. Didn't have protection, never asked if she had held a firearm. Knew Lee Cole was using a gun, a real revolver, and did nothing.
Disputing the defense's argument, Prosecutor Russell alleged that even when a certain amount of delegation is expected, the officers needed clearer leadership at the top, that the event was chaotic before the scenario even began.
So then the argument from the defense goes, well, yes, but he delegates. He can delegate assignments to his officers and they need to be followed. I agree. If you're going to delegate, then they should be followed. But if you're going to delegate, you better know who you delegated to. He had no idea who he allegedly delegated things to that night.
When defense attorney Stephen Romine took the podium to deliver his closing arguments, he was more impassioned than at any other moment in the trial, rebutting the prosecution's case point by point.
This is not about, is it possible something could go wrong in any scenario? That's not what culpable negligence is about.
He said this case would be different if Chief Lewis's officers had followed the letter of the law, shifting the blame onto officers Heck and Cole.
Tom Lewis didn't expose Mary Knowlton to anything. Lee Cole did. Because as you know, there is no dispute in this case, no matter how it's turned or talked or discussed, there's no dispute in this case that this happened for two reasons, and both of those broke the policies of his agency. That every witness that was up there that was asked this question, did he have a right to expect his officers to follow the law? The answer is yes.
He reiterated that Heck supplied Cole with the ammunition in a means that was outside of the department's protocol. Chief Lewis could not be negligent about something if he had no idea it had happened. For over an hour, Romine continued on, impassioned, breaking down the definition of culpable negligence and how what Chief Lewis did or did not do did not fall under that. It took the jury of 2 women and 4 men 3 hours to deliberate and reach their decision.
We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant in this case. The defendant is not guilty. So say we all.
Not guilty. With the verdict, the community of Punta Gorda was divided. While some community members stood outside the courthouse with signs saying, "Save our chief," others were disappointed. That includes the family of Mary Knowlton. Her son, Steve Knowlton, told WGCU that he felt like the trial trivialized his mother's death. Quote, "They were using terms like injury in the trial, just to minimize it. It was a Disney version of what happened in that trial. The video didn't have any volume. It didn't show the horror that the police or that the citizens went through watching my mom shot, turn around, fall down, and then find out that she's really hurt severely. Using the word injured, that's a pretty lame word to use in a scenario like that." Although the Knowltons received a $2 million settlement from the city, they didn't feel that justice had been served. Nearly 2 months after his not guilty verdict, the city reportedly fired Tom Lewis as a result of an internal investigation. He has since taken another role as chief in a different Florida police department. Then there's the fate of the officer who shot Mary Knowlton, Officer Lee Cole.
Breaking news at 5. The former Punta Gorda police officer who shot and killed a librarian will not spend a single day in prison.
The judge accepted a plea deal from Lee Cole.
In October 2019, Officer Cole accepted a plea deal of 10 years of probation without jail time. In that time, he is not allowed to own a gun or be a law enforcement officer. As the Knowlton family reeled from this verdict too, son Steve also acknowledged the tragedy of everyone involved in this case.
Are you upset with the plea deal at all? Or?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like we got justice, but it's like I understand Lee Cole's in rough shape, so it's like I'd have to be inhuman to wish the worst for him.
And that's all for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear what you think about this case. Do you think justice was served? Let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram at CourtJunkie, by tweeting me at CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing me at podcast@courtjunkie.com. This episode was researched and written by Emma Diehl. Matt Stroud edited. If you'd like to hear these episodes without the ads, hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes, or get access to our weekly newsletter regarding fascinating court cases, check out our Patreon options at courtjunkie.com/support. Also, be sure to check out our sister podcast, Civil, which covers interesting civil cases and trials. You can subscribe by searching for Civil Court Junkie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Your favorite devices and start streaming true crime on live channels and on demand. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.